Okay, we've got about a minute, ladies and gents. Okay, it is 6 p.m. by my clock here on the computer. Thank everybody for being here tonight. For this, I guess you'd call it a workshop for the budget, City of Richwood. Roll call of the council members. I see we have Council Member Strawn, Council Member Johnson, and Council Member Escalante online with us tonight. So I do believe that makes a quorum for us. Do we have any public comments at this time? Okay, repeating one more time. Do we have any public comments or any citizens wishing to speak? A last call for public comments. All right, moving on to item number 4. Discussion and action items. Discuss and consider approving the city manager to enter an agreement with the city of Lake Jackson to provide dispatch services for the amounts listed in the agreement. Eric?
And Mayor and Council, I believe we spoke about this during budget a little bit. This is the updated service agreement, interlocal agreement with Lake Jackson to provide our dispatch services. They're kind enough to kind of spread this out over a 3-year incremental period. This year, starting at $71,528. We had budgeted $49,000 originally. Staff seeks approval to enter this contract to continue dispatch services at this time. And I've included in the packet, I've included their worksheet on how they came up with the totals. And I think it's very fair the way they came up with the total. I think under City Manager Yenny, we were kind of offered a pretty good price break for a long time. There was, I think, one minor adjustment years back, but it is actually parceled out by the percentage of usage that the city of Richwood uses on the dispatch service with Lake Jackson. So it's about as fair and unambiguous as it can be. It is what it is.
Yes, sir. That does include the firefighters as well, dispatch for the fire department and dispatch for the police department. So it looked at the way they broke it down. I did, and it seemed like it was a pretty fair breakdown as well to me.
Yes, sir.
Any questions or comments from the council members?
Yeah, Eric, this is Rory. I just had one question. Is Lake Jackson our only option as a city, or are there other options we can do, like Angleton, or what do the other cities in the area do?
Yes, sir. That's a great question. We had looked about a year ago. I believe when there was another police chief in the area. He's no longer with that department anymore. The problem we have right now is we're kind of backed up on a budget timeline. We can explore that after this first year we go in. We can always opt out of this agreement. It is an option, Rory, and that's a great question. There are ancillary costs that do go along with that, though. not quite as cut and dry. We operate mobile data computers with them. We would have to change those settings, frequency changes for radios. Again, the fire department piece. There's a lot that goes into it, and sometimes the cost can get up there. You normally have to buy a consulate for the agency that you're going to, so there's an additional cost on that. Then the TLETS agreements and so on and so forth. So we will explore that option moving forward to do a cost comparison on it. But right now, to be honest with you, we don't have time. I'd like to get this back to LJ to get them included in their budget as well. They're holding up for this as well. But we will explore other options. But again, as far as dispatch goes, we've had no real disagreements with them. The dispatch has been fairly good. I talked to the fire chief last week. He's happy with them as well. So we'll go from there. But we will explore other options just on a cost comparative note and bring those to you.
Okay, sounds great.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Kirsten, if you would, let the record reflect that Councilmember Yarborough is with us at this time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other discussion on the
Yeah. I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Where are we going to get this $22,000 from?
Mike, we have it. We have it in the budget. What we're going to do tomorrow night is ask CCPD to assist in part of this to help defer the cost. This is kind of a last minute unexpected. I would say we were probably 90% done with the budget when we found out about this. To soften the blow on the general fund side, I'll ask CCPD to help out the first year, and then we'll absorb it from there. But no matter the case, we can't absorb this.
So this year one is 2022?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So it's not, okay, so it's not affecting us today's budget.
Yes, sir. It goes into effect FY22 October 1st.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Eric, I may have missed it because I was just a couple minutes late, but is there a reason for the 46% jump in 1 year, or was that already covered?
Yeah, Matt, to be honest with you, we were never hit with a CPI increase. I don't believe, I think this was a line item that just was lost. You know, you get into a city the size of Lake Jackson, many hundreds of line items, and it just was a revenue line item. And I think they finally just kind of broke down and looked at it and said, wow, we're severely limiting ourselves on this. Again, I think it's a reasonable ask if you part and parcel out a 2% CPI since the beginning of the contract. We would be nearing that number anyway. So I just think no offense to Lake Jackson, I think it's just been an oversight or a kind gesture on their part to let us operate at a reduced cost. And even that said, year 1 and 2 are still at a reduced cost to us versus, what we're actually using.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate it. It's reduced, but still 46% in 1 year for their oversight for several years. That's hard to swallow.
Yeah, the original cost for this year would be $128,584, I believe, and I think to assist us with that, they've stair stepping it up over the next 3 years. The 71 this year, 100 and I can't see it on my glasses, 156 next year. So they're aware of that, and I think they're eating some of that cost.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Or do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion approving the city manager to enter agreement with the city of Lake Jackson to provide dispatch services for the amounts year one, $71,528, year two, $100,000 and $100,000 and year three, $128,584.64.
Okay, we have a motion made by Councilmember Escalante. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second by Councilmember Strawn. Councilmember Mike Johnson, how do you vote, sir?
Aye.
Councilmember Melissa Strawn, how do you vote, ma'am?
Aye.
Councilmember Matt Yarborough, how do you vote, sir?
Aye.
And Councilmember Escalante, how do you vote, sir?
Aye.
Okay, let the record reflect that the motion has carried by ayes from all council members present. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, let's see, moving on. Let's go to item 5, FY 2022 budget workshop. Discussion of FY 21-22 proposed budget. I guess
Kirsten,
that would be you.
can you go to this page? Total revenue page. That's it. Okay, Mayor, Council, instead of, running back through everything, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit the things that have changed. As I explained in my email last night, we had late last week, we had word of express pay, CPI increase for that. And then we also had our final tax numbers came out, worksheet came out at 8 p.m. last night. So kudos to staff for getting that done and burning the midnight oil. But we have, I am going to go through the changes on this versus the one we presented last week. On this page, we have one change, which is the top number on FY22 proposed. The new number is $3,039,670, and that change is reflective of our increase in values. And Trish will explain that more a little bit later as we get into the tax side of it, but that will change that number just a little bit. And then if you will switch over to expenditures, I believe it's the next slide. We had only one change on this page, which is the top right, FY22 proposed budget under administration, $678,290. That's a very slight increase, and that is due to express bill pay. We found our increase due to that. All right, Kirsten. And the next slide, please. If you look down at the water department on the far right aisle or far right column, FY22 proposed budget, the bottom three have changed. 791,506 is up a little bit. That is due to express bill pay, and then we moved the employee salary into that line item. The next two, the sewer department, 859,985, and the 280 for solid waste have both decreased due to just some changes we found. So those have gone down. Next slide. top right, this is general fund revenue sources. There was a slight projection increase in the property taxes of 1,916,463. We actually now include penalties and collections on that. We did not figure that in. We figured it was safer to do it without, but we were advised to put that in. So that is a change on that. Next slide. Again, top right, we already discussed this, 678, 290. That's for a slight increase due to express bill pay. Next slide. No change here. General fund, go back. Next slide. Okay, Trish, you got it?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So this would be the bottom line of the general fund budget. As we discussed last week, I built it on the voter approval rate. But then I want to show you options. So I've worked with the county Friday and today and firmed up some things and cleared up some misconceptions on my part. And so these are the numbers that we received last night from the county. Our voter approval tax rate would be 652,278. And that would give us a bottom line, a change in fund balance for general fund of 408,502 based on the budget as it sits right now. The no new revenue rate is 0.611723, and that would give us a change in fund balance of 262,324. So that's about 136 or 46,000 difference. And then as an option, I threw in, if we did not change our tax rate, because we can set it pretty much anywhere in between these two. And our current rate is 627,470. So if we kept the same tax rate, it would change the M&O portion of it because the debt portion has gone up, but it would leave us with a bottom line change in fund balance of $319,083. Okay, you can go on to the next slide. Okay, Eric, did you want to talk about changes in enterprise or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
Okay, so the enterprise, one thing I did, I met with Cliff and I had a $290,000 estimate for solid waste department. I assumed it would go up. He said it will not be going up. So I reduced that back to the 280. And then last week on this slide, I had you having to do a little bit of mental math because 185,000 in debt payments were included. And so to come up with the net fund position, we had to add that back in. This time I took them out and tried to simplify it a little bit. So this does include the depreciation, but it does not include the principal payments because those don't affect fund balance. And so with this sitting as it is, it would have 18,660. One thing I noticed, I was going through all the line items this week and I realized that there were some payroll changes to make, primarily in the water department, some things that I had missed, and I apologize for that. So that's why the fund balance is negative, plus the additional expense for express bill pay. So as it sits right now, and this is not based on any tax revenue, we would have a bottom line net income of 18,660, which would increase the fund balance for next year. Okay, you can go on. So this is just a breakdown of the expenditures, where they're going to come from. Nothing, nothing real shocking, but it does include the addition of a public works employee this year that was eliminated last year. Okay, you can go on. So the main reason we need to talk tonight is to talk about our tax rate options. We are not voting on a tax rate tonight, but we want to get your feedback and we want you to know your options. So at the top of this slide is where we are right now. For fiscal year 21, which is tax year 20, this was our M&O and INS of 517,222 and 110,248 for a total of 627,470 per $100. Revenue generated has changed from what I told you last Monday based on what the county has informed me. They do a lot of changes throughout the year that I was not aware of. And so our total revenue generated is this amount, 1780,552. Of that, 371,605 was our INS to pay off our debt. Our debt requirement this year is 473,230 per their calculations. And they have calculated that that requires an INS tax rate of 129,184. So that is fixed. That is based on what we need to pay off our debt and what they calculate to be our collection rate. So that we cannot change. These are definitions of the no new revenue and the voter approval tax rate. One thing I did not realize until I was talking to Kristen at the county is that the no new revenue tax rate is based on total levy. I thought it was M&O. So when you go to no new revenue tax rate, you're not going to generate any more revenue than what the total levy was last year. And if our appraised values increase, your no new revenue rate is going to decrease from what you had the previous year. And then the voter approval is that you can earn 3.5% increase in your M&O. And so when that's combined with the INS rate, it may increase the total tax rate. Okay, you can go on. So this is the worksheet I showed you last year, but I've updated it with the numbers direct from the county. There is our taxable value of 360, 444, 400. And they changed our taxable value from last year based on some changes that were made to 342, 989, 627. It's just a slight decrease. So these calculate our options. And so you can see across the bottom, the total tax rates for the no new revenue, the voter approval, or if we did not change our tax rate at all. 0.129184 of each of those is to pay the debt. And so then the amount up above that line shows the levy if we would collect 100%, and then between the lines is if we would collect 99%, which is what I show we historically have done. But we base our budget on the 100% collection rate. And that was one thing I had done wrong last week too. I based it on the 99% collection rate. Okay, you can go on. So this is the same worksheet, but condensed a little bit to show what it does to property values. If we compare these rates to what we currently have, we go with the no new revenue tax rate. That's a decrease in the total tax rate, and the levy for the city of Richwood on these property values would reduce. If we go to the voter approval rate, that is an increase, still lower than 2 years ago, but it is an increase from where we currently are. And therefore it would increase those values somewhat. And if we left it at our current rate of 627,470, there would be no change. Okay, you can go on. So this is that same slide again. I thought you might want to see it again. This is what the bottom line for the general fund would be with those rates. The voter approval rate, we would generate more money than what we have budgeted right now, even above our 300,000 kind of, self-implemented limit that we want to keep. The no new revenue rate would go below that 300,000, and the keep the same total rate. I didn't know what to call that. So keep same total rate would generate 319,083. So we would be right about at the 300,000 limit that we don't want to go below. That allows for some flexibility when things come up, unexpecteds, and we just don't want to go any closer to the zero mark than that. Okay. Now we also wanted to talk about the supplemental budget requests. KRB has put in a total of, first one is $3,000 and the second one is $2,500. Sorry, I can't talk. So about $5,500 that they're asking for. As you can see, we do have room in the budget. It's your decision if we would include these things. But what we want to talk about a little more is the Public Works request. Cliff and Eric, I believe, met this week and kind of pared down what they feel is kind of bare bones, what they really need. And it eliminated some of the costs. So it went from 208,000 down to a total of 152,500. So you can go to the next slide. And this is just a recap of what Cliff had put in last week. So it'd be 32.5 for the software upgrade from Logic to Analytics and 120 for the water optimization program. You can go on to the next one. And again, these were Cliff's descriptions of these. The analytics software right now is probably the cheapest that we can upgrade to it because Logic is not going to be supported much longer. And so they're giving a bit of a discount right now. The optimization program, Cliff and Eric both feel it's a pretty necessary thing for us to keep up with what we're doing. You can go to the next. So we had talked last Monday about using that COVID money that we have sitting on a line item in general fund right now. So I wanted to kind of go over that with you. Last week, as I said, the Public Works request was a total of 208,000 and we had 209,000 sitting in there. So I did a little bit more digging into that line item. About 1,500 of it is not COVID related. It is money that we get for intermodal revenue. I don't know what that means, but I know we get it from the county occasionally. And then, so it goes in there. But what we've received strictly for COVID is we received 25,126 from FEMA. And then we received an additional 186,868 from the CARES Act. And then the IRS, when I filed the 941, we could take a credit for our income taxes and a portion of our benefits paid for COVID leave. And this was through March, I believe, of this year. So for a year. So we got a total of 11,262 as a refund from the IRS for those amounts. So our total COVID relief funds were 223,256. We sent a check to the school for 15,000, which was approved, I believe, at an earlier meeting. And we paid 115,167 out during the time that the City Hall was closed for overtime pay as dictated by the policy. And so if you deduct those two things out, that leaves $93,089. Now, all of this has been absorbed. We've paid all these bills. And I didn't deduct, we've spent about $5,000 on laptops and some network things. We needed to do that anyway. And we spent about $1,000, I think, on PPE stuff, which was a necessity anyway. So we're roughly talking about 88 to 90,000. Right now, though, I'm projecting, if all goes well the next couple of months, we're going to end with almost 500,000 as a positive for the year that will add to the general fund balance. And so we've done really, really well this year in keeping costs down and watching our pennies and nickels. So what I'm recommending is that we transfer the full amount to cover the public works supplementals of 152,500. I would meet with the auditors to find exactly the best way to do that, so that what I don't like is to do things that artificially inflate or deflate income in a year. Right now, the 223,000 that's sitting there is artificially increasing our income for the year. And so when you look back historically, it kind of gives a tainted view. I don't want to do that to public works next year or following years. So I want to make sure that that would be done correctly. So I would confer with the auditors to make sure how we would do that. But we do have sufficient funding, more than enough, that we could cover those requests from public works. And I think that's
Just to be clear, you're talking about doing that in FY22, not FY21?
That would be up to the auditors if we would do that this year or transfer it from fund balance next year, because then it wouldn't affect income on either one. So, and I believe that's my last slide.
Okay, we got any questions for Tricia?
I had one. What did Cliff cut in order to cut? What was it? About $50,000. What did he cut back on? in his request?
Melissa, that is part of the AWIA study that we are already paying for. And when we went back through and looked at what was included in this optimization plan, they actually had a component for AWIA. We're already doing that. We have a separate AWIA already being done, so they can include that for free in the study.
And Melissa, also there was a component in there for a nitrification action plan, which it would have been beneficial to us, but the key thing for us to get a nitrification action plan into TCQ for compliance purposes, this would have basically revised what was just done for compliance purposes. And I felt that we could trim back on that too, and that saves some money. On the software update, we originally included money for the annual fees. I'm not saying it was a mistake. It's accurately representing what we pay yearly, but we already pay a large portion of that now. There is a difference. There is an increase of about $5,800 a year reoccurring costs for that, which is figured into the budget. But we currently pay about $19,500, $19,600 for the hosting fees for the software. So it's already in the budget. We just kind of captured that and we're able to show it a little bit more real or truthfully because we already paid for the hosting.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we weren't cutting back on anything that you needed just trying to save money. I understand saving money, but I want to make sure you have everything you need.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I feel we do. I think these are places where we can trim.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Tricia, this is Rory. I did have one question. Comparing the voter approved rate, the no new revenue rate, and of course our same total tax rate.
Yes.
Do we have a comparison of like some of the other communities surrounding us? What, obviously they're in their budget process as well, but what their current tax rate is, just as a comparison, or if we have any insight what they might be potentially leaning towards. I just want to make sure I make an informed decision or recommendation to make sure that Richwood's still going to be, a competitive bedroom community, and not, word of mouth, people trying to move in to say, man, that little community has the highest tax rate in all of Lower Missouri County.
Yeah.
I wouldn't move there. I just want to make sure we're in line.
I don't have that available at my fingertips right now, Rory. For current tax rates, you can look on the county, or you can look, on their budget. I have not seen any projections publicized. It doesn't mean they weren't there. I just haven't caught them as far as what they're talking about this year. So, but I can do some more research and I can send that out to you guys if you would like.
Roy, I do know that several municipalities around us took significant losses in property values this year. 100 million plus in one, 9 million plus in another. So it will definitely impact their tax rates if they want to continue operating at a certain level. But there you go.
I'm showing a website at Texas County Information Program, but this is as of tax year 19.
Mm-hmm.
You can see here. It's not in order, unfortunately, of highest to lowest. It looks like alphabetical.
And it looks like we're kind of upper half, but definitely not at the top.
And I can also send this website out to y'all if you need.
We're never going to be able to compete with Lake Jackson because of the kickbacks they get from Dow, right?
That in retail.
Yes. Lake Jackson has a huge revenue source in their sales tax and in the plants. We don't have that luxury. On the flip side, we aren't as subject to losses.
Exactly.
They've lost a good number of dollars in their appraised values this year. I believe it was about $1 million that Lake Jackson lost. I'm assuming that's probably more commercial property, which we don't have. We went up this year a little bit, whereas some of the communities around us took a hard hit. It is a new appraiser. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But, they have more commercial property, industrial property that we don't have. And so when they get hit, we may not. And so we didn't this year like they did. If they're going to keep their expenditures up at where they were, they're going to have to raise their tax rates. I say that unfortunately because I live in Lake Jackson, but they are quite a bit lower than here because they have all those other revenue sources.
I got one question. And the budget, you obviously put a lot of work into it. It looks real good. Express pay, I kept on hearing express pay quoted. I mean, how much money are we spending total?
So that is and that's one of the things we wanted to talk to council about as well. We pay a fee for our online bill pay processing when people pay online or when they come in and they pay on credit card. With credit card, but even online, if it's a draft out of their checking account or something like that. So I'm pulling up that account just for a moment.
Do we pay per transaction or just per
Yes.
month?
we pay per transaction, and it went up significantly. And so this year, the general, or the water and sewer fund, let's see, so far this year has spent $8,500 with 2 months left to go. And then, and 4,700 has been paid out of the general fund with 2 months to go. So, you know, you're talking, what is that, about 15,000 a year. And they've just jumped up about 40%, 30%, I think it was. So it's a sizable amount. We are from what I've heard, we are one of the only cities that does not pass on that fee as the form of a courtesy fee or something like that. And so we're eating that right now. So the bottom line of that is that all taxpayers are paying for the convenience of those that are using that service. So, you know, to be more equitable, it would probably be better to vote in a convenience fee on those transactions.
So if I came in and I paid cash, or if I paid by check, you charge that only if I use credit card?
Right.
Well, I mean, they do that at Specs, you know.
Yep.
You go use a credit card at Specs, you're going to pay more.
Yep.
I mean,
and a lot of places do that. If you pay with your credit card online, you're paying a $2 to $4 convenience fee.
we shouldn't be eating that. Just like, you know, we talked about before with the water budget about operating in the red, you know, a couple of years ago, if you remember right, Mayor. I mean, we should not be giving stuff away.
No, I agree.
From what I've heard, I wasn't here, but there was discussion with the current council at that time that they did not want to pass that cost on to the residents, but I can see where it's not fair to those that don't use that service, because that cost is part of the cost of running the city that's dependent either on our utility rates or our tax rate.
That and a lot of the high-end fees that we're paying is from building permits and the more expensive permits that we pay. It's a percentage of each credit card charge.
So I could do some more research, find out what other companies, or we're not a company, what other cities do. If it's based on value, if it's based just transaction, and bring that to you guys as, would that be an ordinance or a resolution, whatever it would be, at our next meeting?
I'll have to find out how it was even decided. I think it was when we entered into the agreement, it was a discussion. I'm looking in past minutes, but.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Say again, Matt.
I wasn't sure if y'all can hear. I've been having trouble with my mic, but I thought this was a big benefit to the city staff in collecting these payments. I thought that was a reason. I didn't think this was purely convenience for the residents. Am I misunderstood?
It's a credit card transaction fee that Express Bill Pay charges for processing the credit cards. They call it a convenience fee, but it's a Visa. We pay a Visa fee or a credit card processing fee, and then Express Bill Pay charges a fee. Just like the court processing, we charge a 5% fee for every credit card payment, but we pass that on to the court customers because it's a different processing company. But before we switched court programs, the court defendants, the customers from the court, were getting that benefit also of having their fees waived. The city was having to absorb that.
Well, but just the services of Express Bill Pay. I mean, because that's still less than 2 years old, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the only time a resident wouldn't use the service is if they paid cash or check. If they pay with a card, they're using Express Bill Pay, whether it's with the teller here or online in their own account.
Okay.
And
it's our credit card processing company.
And it is a convenience to the residents. Many take advantage that they just have it set up that it auto pays on Express Bill Pay, or they log in and pay. If they call in and say they want to make a payment, we ourselves go into Express Bill Pay and process the payment for them. It doesn't really save us a lot of time because there's still reconciliations and, different processes we have to do. We're not physically taking checks to the bank, but in
But even
this,
if we took credit card any other way, we would have this fee. It's not
Yes.
just an express
Yeah.
bill pay.
and, having it online is definitely a convenience for the customers.
Well, also in a COVID world now, it's keeps the people from having to be here and face-to-face contact as well.
And usage did increase during the last year because of that. And I would be very, very surprised if it then went back to pre-COVID levels. I think people realized how easy it is. So we're going to continue to see higher than we saw the last, before this last year. And then when they hit us with this large increase, I think it's time that we it's not really fair to the residents for us to eat it and spread it over everybody.
So is it a percentage or is it a per transaction? Like, is it $1 or $2 per transaction, or is it a percentage? Do you know off the top of your head?
It is per transaction, Melissa.
Depends on the type of transaction.
So to process a credit card per transaction, it's 39, it's going to be 39 cents. We were paying 30. For EFT online payments where they draw out of the bank account, we were paying 40 cents and we'll be paying 49. So that's the majority of it. And then we pay a percentage of the total that's processed on top of that. So, and that looks like, I don't know what the previous was. I don't have that here. So I spoke a little over exuberant before. It's a 21% increase, but that's still sizable. So, if we had 15,000 this year, you're talking 18 to 20 next year.
So is there a way to do just an average rather than having people have to calculate, 10% or something like that? Could you get to charge a flat $1 or $2 or whatever? Can you average it out just to kind of get an idea of what a fair fee would be?
Yeah, and that's what I would talk to Express Bill Pay and do some investigating of other cities, just checking their online things before I brought a proposal to you guys. But
Most likely as you enter the payment, it'll calculate the fee.
Yeah. So this just came to us like last week. So I haven't really had time to really investigate into it. Just time really to plug the difference into the budget.
Okay, any further questions? All right, Eric, y'all got anything else?
Yes, sir. Mayor and council, coming up Monday night, we will need to set the tax rate, the maximum tax rate again. We went through this last year and I want to be perfectly clear this year. You're not actually setting our current tax rate. You're setting what is the maximum allowable. And I don't want to tell council what to do, but it is always best if you set a fairly high tax rate and work down from there as we approve the final one. So with that said, I would hope that council would Monday night set the voter approval tax rate, which is the highest allowable we have. And then we'll work back down from that. I don't see us needing the voter approval tax rate, but Monday night, once we do this record vote, that vote goes to the county and we can't go higher. We can only go lower. And that's very important to remember that. So that's just food for thought. Tricia, do you have anything to add on that?
No, it's just it was very confusing. Last year, of course, was my first year, and it was very confusing for the council to understand that. And then we had a lot of comments because it will come out in the paper that Richwood set their tax rate at, even though it's really, we're setting our limit, what we won't go over. If we went any over that voter approval rate, we would have to take it to the residents to vote on. We're not going to do that. We don't need to do that. But we want to have the flexibility as we go through our discussions to talk about all three of those rates I presented to you. And so if we do it at one that you all think you might be going to do, if we change our mind, we're stuck with that. And it probably wouldn't backfire on us, but it could. So.
And that's really all I've got. If there are no further questions on the budget per se, what's basically contained in here, not the tax rate, but the budgetary items, I am sure there will be a few minute changes between now and when we present budget. But if there's no further discussion needed, we will bring any changes brought forth, and we'll just call this pretty much our budget going forward. And then the only thing we need to do then is set the tax rate, approve the final budget, and then we're good to go.
So I have a question. Maybe this is just for Eric. I don't know, but as I prepare the budget to present to you for approval, right now, the budget as it sits right now is using that voter approval rate, which I don't assume we're going to go with. And it also does not include anything with the supplementals. So it'd be nice to have some feedback of where you would like that set.
Why are we assuming we won't go with the voter approval rate?
I'm not assuming we will, because I'm not assuming any of them. I set it on that just because I had to pick one. But I'm not making any assumptions on what you guys are going to vote on.
Yeah, I personally would. I mean, I think y'all have presented good justification for the supplementals for sure. With the logic changing on the public works stuff, we're going to pay more for it later if we don't take the discount they're offering us now. So it seems foolish to not take that. The KRB part seems more minimal, but they've done a lot of work, so I don't see why updating the sign and then updating the scholarship. I'd be in favor of those. But I would like to keep the numbers, especially if we're going to vote, on Monday, to keep the ceiling at the voter approval rate, which I think is smart, just because you can go anywhere from there.
Right.
I would keep the number reflecting that, in my opinion.
Okay.
So at this point, what we'll do, I'm sorry, go ahead, Melissa.
I was going to say, I had a question about the signs. I think the scholarship's a great idea, but the Bobby Ford sign, that one's like a stone brick sign, and it looked like it's in pretty good shape. So before everybody votes to approve that changing of the signs, can we ask to take a drive past them and just see what they look like? Because that's a lot of money. And right now we're really trying to focus on necessity versus, not necessity. And that seems like they appear to be in fairly good shape still. And I just wasn't sure about that one in particular, just to maybe have council drive past them and see what they think before we vote on that.
Sure.
I think those are really nice signs at the Bobby Ford Park.
At the same time, the budget is KRB's budget that they've set on what they spend their allocation on, and they were just wanting supplemental funding from the city to help them purchase it. They're wanting to make all of the signs match the new sign at Ellis Park, which here or there on thinking which sign is better or not. They have set their specific budget. They're just council funding KRB is kind of not a donation to them, but to their cause. That's just what they've set it for, their budget.
Yeah.
That makes
So
sense.
that comes out of their $16,000 of savings, or is it 16? So that just comes out of that. That doesn't come out of the general fund.
Well, they're asking for additional funding from general fund to go with the donations that they receive so that they can take that plus their money and then buy new signs. They want to do these newer signs every couple of years, or they have a plan for eventually hitting all of the parks. So that's why they're asking for an increase. Last year, Cliff had a surplus in one of his accounts that helped them fund that Ellis Park sign. So KRB used their funds for part of it, and then Cliff assisted in purchasing the remainder. They're just asking to go ahead and have the city allocate that other half of the sign to purchase ahead of time, or additionally, I guess I would say.
Currently in the general fund, there's a $7,000 line item for parks in Department 8. They're asking that to be increased to 9,500. And then in the transfers, we have a transfer of 3,000 that general fund transferring to KRB fund, and they're asking that to increase. So those are monies from the general fund, but they're for KRB's benefit.
Because KRB acts as Parks Committee, not on behalf of KRB.
Yes.
So that line item in Parks is because they are also our Parks and Recs Committee. And that's what they're trying to request that increase for the signs. So yes, that would be the city's funding, but that's the reason why they're requesting it.
So it's an additional 5,500 out of general fund.
Yes.
Gotcha. I had driven by it and I thought they still look pretty nice, and was just
I
thinking,
agree. I
we're
like
trying to be
I
careful.
like the other
right
ones
now.
too.
Yeah, if we're trying to be careful right now, that seems like something that maybe could wait a couple years. If we, just to be
Yes.
cautious.
I agree. I like the Bobby Ford sign or the way it looks.
Mhm.
And that increase in
That's the only
budget-
reason I was mentioning it.
100%. I have the same feeling.
that increase in the parks budget, if they didn't do a sign, they wouldn't necessarily spend that money. I mean, it would stay there until it was spent in the general fund. The transfer for, and I don't even remember I don't have it in front of me. The transfer of the 2,000 going from 3 to 5, or whatever it was. The transfer would actually be transferred to KRB. That would leave general fund immediately on October 1st and go into Fund 18, I think it is, or Fund 20, whatever it is. So there's a little difference in those. One is part of general fund's operating line items, and one is a transfer out of the fund.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry. If you were working on trying to organize things, I just wanted to see how
Yeah.
everybody felt about that
And
one.
that's, we've given you a lot of options. Last year, we just kind of presented you a budget and we went with it. And this year, we're trying to give you some options. And so for me to be prepared with what you want at the budget meeting when we approve these things, I need to know where council is wanting me to go. So just some feedback, and there can be some back and forth between us too. So
Just so I'm clear, if we didn't give KRB the 7,000 for the sign, they could still potentially change that sign and cut 7,000 elsewhere in that.
So
Park.
they're asking for 2,000. The 7,000 is what we already budget for the parks budget, and they're asking it to increase to actually 95. So it's 2,500, I believe.
Oh, okay, I see that. By 2,500, not from 25.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
wanting to go from 2,000 to 5,000 for the transfer. So they're asking for 3,000 more.
Yeah.
Or no, they're 3,000 to 5,000. The way this person wrote this is confusing. That person being me. So they want to increase their transfer from general fund by 2,000, and they want to increase the Parks and Rec general fund line by 2,500, and that's for the sign.
Okay.
And they're planning on this coming year doing a sign at Larry Johnson Park, which does not have a sign, if I understand correctly. But they want it to match the Ellis Park sign, and then eventually, probably the next year, ask for that same amount to replace the Bobby Ford sign. That, I think, would need to be a discussion between KRB and council as to what they want as far as signs.
Well, I guess that's the point I was getting to is we don't really have a say in how the signs look. I mean, that's kind of KRB. If we didn't give them this money, they could cut elsewhere in their budget and still put the sign to match the new municipal park.
I mean, any expenditures out of general fund have to come through Eric and through myself as a purchase order if they're over $1,000 and be approved. And council always has a say in whatever we're doing. So I think there is, some say in it, but I see your point too. Yes, they use that $7,000 now for events in the park and different things that are just strictly park related. So.
Okay. Anything else? Just one thing. I think everybody on the council remembers 2 years ago. Just remember, folks, we when we go to make that decision next week, we need to kind of have it in our head what we're going to do, because the county won't take a tied vote where I have to vote on it. If you remember, we had to come back and re-vote the next night simply because the county would not accept it. So please be, I think it had something to do with the fact that we didn't have all the council members there at the time, but still just study, be prepared, and if there's any discussion, ask questions as you can of Eric, Trish, and Cliff and Kirsten. That way we can go in there and get it done basically the way we need it done, based on what the majority of the council feels like they want.
And I did like the word that Matt used. He said it's a ceiling, and that's exactly what it is. You're voting that it would be the absolute highest we go. If we went one bit above that, we would have to go to an election. And I don't think any of us would want to do that right now because it's not a necessity. So you're not voting again on what our tax rate is going to be. You're just voting on what it will not exceed.
Okay, anything else? Oh, go ahead, Melissa.
Mayor, you brought up a good point. Do we have to be there in person in order to make this vote? Because I know a lot of times we've been able to call in and things like that. Is there a rule for that for this next one, just in case?
No, it's just a roll call vote. So like the mayor's been doing with standard items, it's just a roll call vote. And fortunately, right now, we're still allowed to do it, remotely.
Okay, great. Everything being as crazy as it has been the last few weeks, I just wanted to make sure that we, just in case.
And part of what Mayor was talking about was a super majority. We have to have a 2/3.
Yeah.
2/3.
3 out of 5.
Right.
If there is a COVID concern, and I'm glad you brought that up, Melissa, I am comfortable. I believe we've said this before. Kirsten, I, Trish, Cliff, I think we're all comfortable doing remote or in person. Where we have trouble with our software and our recordings and is the hybrid meeting. If council wants to make this a remote meeting, we can do that as well. That's no problem for us. I think we do a good job doing it remotely. The current situation, with the COVID, it's all around us. It's impacting our employees. I've got a friend now who's vaccinated, who has it and is in the hospital. So I don't know what to think. It's kind of startling and not very comforting to me. But if it's council's desire to make Monday night's meeting remote, we can do that as well.
I have no problem with that. I think just today I was hearing from another city that one of their popular eating places, all the employees are 3/4 to almost 90% of the employees are out with COVID right now. So I've had my vaccinations, but I still choose to wear a mask when I'm in close quarters, especially places that I'm not sure of. But if the council has no problem with it, I'd be comfortable with the way we're doing it right now.
Hey, Kirsten, how are you able to put out the remote meetings? I see we're live on YouTube. Are we also on Facebook?
I shared the link on Facebook to view the meeting via YouTube so that if they're on Facebook, they can link up. YouTube's just easier for me to archive them and save them. Facebook's a little unpredictable on removing videos. If I know we don't have music or anything or copyright, but Facebook will just remove things without notice. And I have to, for public record and information, I have to have everything that we post stay. So I've switched to YouTube and I just share the link.
Okay.
That way I can archive it.
We're still way more accessible than we were at the beginning of COVID.
Oh yes, I think the YouTube's working out good. I went back and watched the playback. It sounds good. The tricky part will be if we do decide to do in person. I want to continue with the YouTube live streaming. It's just going to take me a little bit more on the back end to get it there because I explained it to a few residents on Facebook, but we need 1,000 YouTube subscribers to go live via our camera system. And I don't have that many friends yet on my YouTube channel. So I found a work around it. And so it's just gonna take a little bit more work, but luckily Zoom has a live to YouTube feature. So I'm doing that right now.
Thank you for all the work you're putting in to make this happen, Kirsten.
Oh,
I know
that's no problem.
I know it's a lot.
I'm like a low budget, high tech trying machine over here.
Yeah, I guess we can't vote, but I am in favor of going remote next week.
Yeah, I can go either way. I wasn't sure how everyone, with what's been going on the last week or so, I wasn't sure where everyone was with that too.
I take a motion.
No,
Well, I'm okay with either way, but
the mayor can just make the call.
we're kind of having a spike right now, so I'd almost rather do remote.
Yeah, I think that's good. I can tell you that when I'm doing court out at Surfside, I'm doing it remote, and we're talking about some other issues that we need to deal with to make sure that the people that are coming in are protected. So it's not a subject nobody wants to broach again, and I'm not going to broach it here other than say that I think this is a pretty good way to make sure that we protect the citizens, we protect ourselves and our families.
Okay, remote it'll be.
All righty. Anything else? Council member reports, comments.
Just like I said before, it looks like a lot of work was put into this budget and the budget preparation. I really appreciate it. It makes it really knocks down the number of questions you get.
Thank you, Mike.
And I do apologize for some misinformation last week. This is still a learning curve for me, and without the actual stuff from the county, I was guessing too much. So I apologize.
Well, Kirsten's got her ruler. She's going to come in there tomorrow and slap you on the hand with it.
She does that all the time.
Okay, any last call for council?
No, I would just say the same thing. I appreciate the staff, the hard work for the budget. A lot less questions than 2 years ago and a lot less questions than last year even. So the streamlining and making things transparent from the get-go helps out. I just hope everybody keeps in mind the list of projects that we've already been quoted by engineers and the infrastructure needs of the city. So takes money.
Yes, it does. I
Well,
think we're finally on a positive upswing, and that's a good thing.
I would like to say to add on to what Matt and Melissa and Mike have said, coming into this thing, my first term as mayor, the budget time, I don't remember how many meetings we had, but it was a long string of walking out of the meetings with a lot of question marks. And as we've gone along through here, the last 2 years, last year was so much better. And this year is looking even better. And it's because our teamwork is paying off. And we've got a great group of people that are working together. And I definitely appreciate that myself.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, moving on to the mayor's report. I only got one thing, and it's really it's not budget related, but it's weather related. I've been watching the Caribbean and the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico. There's a lot of stuff working down around, coming across from the Atlantic into the Caribbean that could pop up. Right now, I've been following. Well, the National Weather Service or Hurricane Center is following one system that they're giving a 40% or no, a 20% or 10% chance. I looked at it here a little bit ago and I can't remember the numbers, but it's out close to the Cape Verde Islands. We're getting into that part of the season now, especially with no dust to knock things down, where we're going to start seeing a lot more. And the Pacific side is very active right now, and wouldn't take much for one of those Pacific storms to come over into the Gulf. So please, everybody, be on your, kind of watch the news or watch whatever it is you watch to keep up with it. Make sure your plans are in place. I think we've already had one that kind of we checked out our plans with that first storm that we were looking at, and but let's not let our guard down. And again, if we know anyone in this city, if for some reason we don't, they haven't called 211, but if we have any suspects or suspicions that we have folks that need help to get out or otherwise need any kind of help during a storm, let's make sure that we get the word or get it into Kirsten or the chief or Eric or myself so we can be ready to help them when we need to, and get the fire department or get them up to a hub where they can be transported out. It's a lot of work when it gets down to it, and all the preparation and all the knowledge, all of the keeping up with our citizens, which I think we do a pretty good job of. We've got a family type atmosphere in the city, and I believe that our citizens care enough about the other ones, about their neighbors, to let us know as well. So please, everybody kind of stay on top of it. let us know if you've got any issue or any citizens or friends or neighbors in the area, in the city that we need to help. And even if you know of some outside the city, well, we can transfer that information over to the county and let them take care of it. But with that, that's about all I've got. And if there's nothing else, it is 7:14 p.m. and we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.